The journey to me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I. The journey to me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I. The journey to me. Questions. Trying to make sense of my life, looking through the lenses of my past. I have learned, now I have answers. Looking in the mirror at myself, and I'm liking what I see. But it's been a journey to get here. It's been a journey to get here. Looking in the mirror at myself, and I'm loving what I see. But it's been a journey. Good morning. It's been a journey to get here. To the place so recognition of me, myself and I. And today we're talking about the girl I was made it. Now, as I had stated, good morning. We are at 8:45. We're at a different time than we would normally be. It's kind of just, it happened. You know what? I just allowed it to be this morning. I just did. I got up at about 4 a.m. this morning, and I sat in meditation and thought a lot of thoughts, which is what happens, right? For me, for a lot of people, meditation is just quiet. For me, it begins with, I think a lot of thoughts start to come to mind. And when those thoughts come to mind, then I go deep into a thought or a series of thoughts and allow those thoughts to take me where they want to take me, so that I can hear what I need to hear and grasp what I need to grasp to be inspired for my day. So that's kind of how it works for me. Everybody's different, but that's kind of how it works for me. And being in that moment takes me from where I currently am into that space with that thought. And then that thought becomes all encompassing. That image, those thinkings, those aspirations, they just become all of me in that moment. So I was having one of those days today, which is always an amazing day because you never quite know exactly what's getting ready to happen. And I like those days because they're unpredictable, even more unpredictable than normal. Because obviously you can plan your day the best you want to and things just erupt and emerge because life is just that way. But when I have one of those days, I'm always believing something very amazing is getting ready to happen to me or around me. So I get really, really super, super excited. So my name is Lizzie Morris, and I am your host of Morning Inspirations. And I have been talking about for several weeks the fact that I wanted to dedicate a show to Mama Maya. And I call her Mama Maya. Most people call her Maya Angelou. But I wanted to dedicate a show to her. Now, I realize it's going to take more than one show. And I don't even know then if it would do her justice at all. Hi there, Skyblade. I have no idea if it would do her justice. So I know we're at least going to do 2 shows back to back, and it may extend into the rest of the week because she has done so much work. She has such a huge body of work, and she has influenced so much. And for me, when I think about her, she is the person who continues to speak to me even though she stopped speaking. And I'm constantly inspired by her. And so I wanted to bring her to you in her own words. So I hunted and I hunted until I found something that I thought told the story of herself in a point at which, when we're thinking about Women's Month, where I thought it could be most impactful, where it could really inspire you. So I didn't take her at the ending years of her life. Well, yes, she was still, let's not to know, she was still like super duper inspiring. I mean, she's always inspiring, right? Always like amazing. But I took her from a place at which in age she would be somewhere possibly about my age or just a little bit older. And so that's the space I honed in on her on. So if we were going to be a product owner for a second and marketing, the avatar I'm speaking to today is the woman who sees that she has accomplished much and already has accolades. So you've been on this thing called this journey of life a little minute, and you've experienced stuff and you've seen things and you have bodies of work to show for your being thus far. That today would be, you could say, my primary avatar. And then you may say, well, Liz, what about the rest of us? Well, the rest of you are going to get stuff out of it anyway. But to that woman who is at that age where she's old enough, but still young enough to take experiences and allow them to evolve her to an even greater level, should she choose to. She doesn't need to by the standards of everybody else around her, but nonetheless, she may choose to. So that's the woman today I'm talking to as my primary. And you could be in corporate already at that level of being a senior executive, a senior director, and you're at that point. Everybody thinks, wow, when they look at you, you know? But yet, when you see yourself in the mirror, you don't see the wow the way they see the wow. Because inside of you in those quiet moments is still the little girl talking to you, not the grown, powerful, accomplished woman that everybody else sees. And it's that woman this morning I want to inspire to allow yourself to keep going and dare to take your next level of evolution. Dare to grow again, intentionally, just the way you have done to get to where you are right now. Dare to take on that next phase of life from a different view. And the reason why I titled today, The Girl I Was Made It, is because in every one of us as a woman, although we're adults, we're mothers, we're carers, we're all these things, there is often still the little girl that speaks out to us, that is still there, that isn't the same age as we are to the rest of the world. That little girl is often frozen at a certain space in our journey. And from that space, she encourages us. She's our cheerleader. She's the person who wipes our tears. She's so many things to us. But she's still on the inside while the girl on the outside has grown up. And I believe listening to Mama Maya's story will really give you a moment of, okay, all right then, one of those. I think it will really do that for you. So without further ado, we start every show, of course, with meditation, where we just kind of allow ourselves to just be. And I'm going to give us a moment for that. But then I'm going to take us straight into Mama Maya talking about herself, and I'm going to hop it around to different little pieces. And then there's pieces I'll just allow to play so that she can speak to you. So let's go into embracing ourselves today as women and being grateful for the girl that made it. Yes, I'm grateful today that the little girl I didn't think did, made it and is here. Yes, I am grateful for all the little girls that made it everywhere. Yes, I am grateful that the women today who choose to smile still have a story or two that they've left. Yes, I am grateful that today as women we stand in all our beauty. Even when the scars unseen still have not healed. Yes, I'm grateful for the moments when as little girls we come together in our packages of grown women. Yet in that moment we see each other as little girls who are still wanting to be seen. Yes, I'm grateful for the laughter we can laugh from the inside. And yes, I'm grateful that we can still be brave standing tall on the outside. And yes, I'm grateful generations of us continue to be born and celebrate. And yes, I am grateful, regardless of who we've chosen to be in this world. We are women, and we are journeying to be. Yes, I am grateful that we have our expressions, the different hues, the different styles, but all of them are us. The symphonic harmony of womanhood, when brought together, sings the song of sisterhood. Yes, today I am grateful we are here as women. Yes, I am grateful. I am a woman. So obviously this month I'm keeping the gratitude in the space of us celebrating who we are as women and embracing that womanhood and allowing it to just be. So let me introduce you, in case you don't know her. But I believe most of you do, and if you don't know her by her works, you know her by her name. You have heard it on the lips of many over and over again. But what you might not have known is that Maya Angelou, as you know her, was born Marguerite, let me pronunciate correctly, was born Marguerite Annie Johnson, April 4th, 1928. 1928. And she died May 28th, 2014. So she had had a long life and she had seen many things. And there's a quote I took from this interview that she did with Greg Jackson in what I believe was 1983. She said, "The best there is to have is the best for me." And I thought that was, kind of one of those ding, wow. The best there is to have is the best for me. And when you understand her journey and we look at the time in which she came into the earth and the things she journeyed through and the things she experienced, and she would have seen the best wasn't always something that was presented for her to be able to have as a woman or as a woman of color. Wasn't always available yet. Nonetheless, she said the best there is to have is the best for me. I choose to reach and expect and obtain the best for me. For me, it's mine. I'm going for it. When I think about women who are admired and who have achieved so much, that is their quest. They are questing for achieving a level of equality, a level of inclusion in a space where often they're not welcomed. It's the story of womanhood here, sadly, at this point on the planet. Nonetheless, we are achieving, we are being, and we are becoming. And as we become, we morph into bridges to allow so many more women to come with us, and we make room for them. So let me introduce her to you and share this interview.
What poetry do you associate with how you feel right now? Is there a poem that comes to you?
Mm-hmm.
What if we stir it up?
Oh, so many. There's a poem. There's a poem which is a good woman feeling bad, because you almost made me weep on this thing 2 or 3 times. I guess I did weep.
How does that poem go?
Good woman feeling bad. The blues may be the life you've led, or midnight hours in an empty bed, but persecuting blues I've known could stalk like tigers and break like bone. Pinned like rope in a gallows tree, make me curse my pedigree. Bitterness thick on a rankling tongue, psalms to love left unsung. Rivers heading north but ending south, funeral music and a going home mouth. All riddles are blues, and all blues are sad. And I'm just talking about some blues I've had.
Isn't that an amazing? In her moment of feeling vulnerable, she chose an articulation of a poem to best express that moment that she was feeling, because in this interview, there is a lot that she opens up and she shares. The poem she quoted, "A Good Woman Feeling Bad," is written by somebody called Buzzy Jackson. So you can look it up. It's still available today, and you can probably find an edition of it. But that's the poem that she quoted to express how she was feeling in the moment. Let's listen to her very touching story.
What were you like as a very young child when all of us are truly formed?
Well, I was sent to Arkansas from California when I was 3, to a tiny, tiny town
Named?
Stamps, Arkansas.
Stamps as in mail?
has been mailed, aptly named. It was about that big, of the size of a 3-cent postage stamp. All small towns are provincial. I lived there from the time I was 3 until I was 13. And as long as I lived there, I was called by the black people Mrs. Henderson's California granddaughter. So I did not belong.
Now, what did you look like? What kind of kid were you?
Well, my eyes have a slant to them. And the black kids told me that my daddy was a Chinaman. And they used to tease me. So I didn't know anything about that. So I thought they meant that he was made out of China, like a cup or a plate or something. It was a terrible thing to say to somebody unknowing. But I had no mother and father. And
wait a minute. Who was taking care of
my grandmother.
Your mother and father had sent you to your grandmother.
Yes, that's right, from California. They had separated when I was 3. My grandmother owned the only black-owned store in the town, and she lived with her younger son, my uncle, who was crippled. And my brother and I, we lived in the store, in the back of the store.
That was really a world in itself.
It was a marvelous world in there.
Could you paint for me just a picture for a moment? Those of us from these big cities. What was it like of an afternoon or a morning? Who gathered? What was the mood of the place?
It would depend on what season. In the summer season, the people who picked cotton would come about 4:30 in the morning, and my grandmother would get out of bed. I slept with her. My brother slept with my uncle. She would get out of bed and immediately down to the floor to pray, to thank God for letting her rise again, that her bed had not become her cooling board, that her blankets had not become her winding sheets, and she had one more chance. And I would lie in the bed while she prayed, and then I would get out of bed. I wasn't obliged to say morning prayers. Only the righteous say morning prayers. So I would get out of bed, and she'd light the lamp, and we would go into the kitchen part of the store and wash, and then go and open up the store. And the people would come in the morning in that light, which was gray, but not gray flat, gray rich gray light.
Into this little country store?
Into the country store. And they'd come in bragging, about how much cotton they were going to pick that day, and they would buy large slabs of cheese if they had money, or peanut patties, which are just the brown sugar and peanuts, which are very high, of course, in sugar, but also high in protein. And sometimes people would buy sardines and a box of crackers, and that would be for lunch, you see. In the evening, the people would come home, and the light would be different. They would be driven back to the store in flatbed trucks where everybody stood up. And all that gaiety and hope and promise of the morning, which went with the morning light, had seeped away through the day. And their shoulders were down and over like that. And they drag out of the trucks and drag across the yard. And their voices, the lightness that had been in the morning, and the teasing, which is so sweet among Black people, the teasing of the morning was gone. And it would just be, well, Sister Henderson, I'm back. Yes, they sure was hot out there. And it would seem as if not only had they lost the spirit, but that they had lost texture. Texture was gone. And during the years when I really noticed, I was a mute. I had stopped talking when I was about 7.5, and didn't really talk again until I was about 12.5.
Really? Why did you stop talking?
Well, when I was about 7, I was taken to St. Louis to visit my mother. And I was there a few months, and her...
I want to quickly pause and give a trigger warning that there is going to be something very graphically told at this point, and I want to make sure you are prepared for it. So if you're not feeling like you can handle that, it's part of the journey of who this woman is and how she became this. But if this is not for you, this is not a part you should listen to, because I want to give that trigger warning before I play the rest of it on.
And I was raped
By whom?
by my mother's then boyfriend. And my brother came to me, he was just about 9. And he asked me who did it. I wouldn't tell anyone else, of course. And I told him, if I tell, the man will kill you. And I believed anything he said, you see. He said, he can't kill me. I will not let him kill me. So I believed him, so I told him. And of course he told my mommy. And the man was found dead.
He'd been murdered.
Yes. I never said that word. He'd been killed. I don't know what, I'm not trying to make the point that there's a fine line between that, but I never used that word. And it was bad enough that he'd been killed. And I thought that my voice itself had killed him.
Isn't that amazing as youngsters how we
I know.
You think you're part of a Chinese porcelain and now that was your voice and
Yes.
killed this guy
Yes.
who in fact had raped you.
Yeah.
But
So I
such
thought
is the world.
if I spoke, I could just kill anybody.
What a weight to carry.
So I just stopped talking for 5 years. But I watched. And of course, my mother couldn't, in St. Louis, she couldn't talk me out of not talking.
Mm-hmm.
She did everything she could. She tried to entertain me and amuse me, and she's very pretty and very funny and cheerful and all that. But I couldn't. So she didn't know what to do with me. So she sent me back to my grandmother. And the people in the town, of course, no one knew what had happened, but my grandmother and my uncle. And they said that I was crazy, that I was retarded. Poor thing. Sister Henderson's grandchild just went crazy. She's mental, you know. And my grandmother would braid my hair, and she'd say, Sister, I know they think you're crazy, that you'll never talk. But when you get ready and the Lord gets ready, you're going to talk, sister. You're going to be a preacher. Mama knows.
When we left off now, you've been returned to your grandmother. You're mute.
Yes.
But you obviously spoke again.
Yes.
How'd that happen?
Well, I started to read, of course, and really to read when I was I was reading early and helping in the store and all that. But I started to read books, I guess, at about 8. And there was a woman in my town, Mrs. Flowers. She was black. She was so beautiful. She was that color black where there's red under the black so that it looks purple. You know, if the sun touches it a certain way, it's so gorgeous.
Do black folks call that a certain color?
Well, that could be blue black or plum black. In describing the person's color, we call people cinnamon, toast, pomegranate. Somebody may be called ginger, honey colored.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
What do they call you?
Well, I'd be honey colored. Oh, they call me brown skin. Or, anyway, but Mrs. Flowers, she had this beautiful skin and beautiful teeth. As the black poet, 19th century poet says, her teeth were like flags of truce. And just so white. Oh, God, she was lovely. And she wore voile, which was a fabric in the 30s. It was like a cotton chiffon. And she'd walk.
In this little town
in this tiny little town. And when I'd see her coming up the road, I just thought she was the prettiest thing God had made so far. And she took me to the library in the segregated school and told me, I want you to read from A to CH by the time I come back. And she'd go to the exotic metropolis of Pine Bluff. And I would read everything. I would understand, whatever I could, but I would read. And I found poetry. Oh, I loved it so.
What poem? What poem?
Oh, everybody. I loved Paul Laurence Dunbar so much.
Does it still stick with you?
Oh, yes. Mr. Dunbar, I took the title of my first book from Sympathy, a poem of Mr. Dunbar. He says, I know what the caged bird feels, alas, when the sun is bright on the upland slopes, when the wind blows soft through the springing grass, and the river floats like a stream of glass, when the first bird sings, and the first bud opes, and the faint perfume from its chalice steals. I know what the caged bird feels. Oh, I loved him. And I loved Shakespeare.
Now, this is an 8-9-year-old child at this point.
But
Mute, and
Mute.
obviously going into your own soul.
Yes,
And the world's being refashioned from those silent eyes.
yes. I would just eat up sound in my eyes. Just listen to everybody. I loved Edgar Allan Poe, who I called Eep to myself. And I memorized.
Now, Mrs. Flowers got you into this. You're still not speaking to anyone. What about brother?
Yes, I could speak to Bailey.
Okay.
But then,
Brother's name Bailey.
Yeah.
But we're not even speaking to grandmother.
no. And that was her, shows how great she was.
Mm-hmm.
But Mrs. Flowers, after about 2 years, I guess, she started telling me that I would never love poetry. She said, until I heard it felt it across my tongue, through my teeth, across my lips, I would never love poetry. And it was as if my best friend was being threatened,
In hindsight, how truly sophisticated psychiatrically
Yes.
what's going on here. I mean, these folks really knew
That's right.
that this poor, young, abused black girl needed.
Hmm.
And they found a way.
Yeah.
You ended up leaving the town.
Yes.
You're on your way into the grown-up world. And now, I guess I was quite surprised to discover that you had a child.
When I was about 15, I was 6 foot tall.
Hmm.
I was an A student, and I was very skinny, and it seemed as if I would never develop breasts or any curves or anything. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I just had bumps. It was like a long brown cucumber with bumps. It was so awful. And I thought, maybe I'm going to be a lesbian.
My, how these things get in our minds, huh?
But they do,
Yeah. You were a China teacup and then didn't speak, and now we're going to be a lesbian.
Well, I had this heavy voice, and I wasn't developing like other girls. So, there was a fellow who was only a few years older than I.
Just a boy.
Yeah. Who had often, stopped me in the street or tried to stop me, and I walked as my grandmother walked. Straight ahead. And I thought, well, maybe I will find out. All the girls I knew in the school were much more sophisticated than I and much more adventurous. And they would talk about this and that. So I decided to try it.
So, see here, my good man? Am I right?
Something like that.
Really? Almost.
Yeah. And I thought, is that all?
I'm sure you're not the first teenager that ever asked that, do you think?
I don't think so.
But from that one occasion you had a son?
Yes.
Ah.
The most magnificent adventure, accomplishment of my life is my son. Yeah.
I had said in the introduction, which you didn't hear for a while briefly, you worked in a house of prostitution to raise your child?
Well, I didn't. I mean, I had one.
You owned one?
Yeah.
Or ran one?
Ran one.
Well,
I was about 18.
Worked in one.
Yeah, but what does one do?
You were a madam.
Yes, when I was 18 for about 2 months. I had been on the street. Had been on the street, yes. I was 18. I also was the first black person at all on the streetcars in San Francisco.
I mean, as a conductor?
Conductorette was the name, please. Thank you. I had my own money changer. I had a cap with a bib on it.
And that was a big deal.
Ooh, that was hot.
I mean, the white folks didn't want to even let you have that job?
No. But anyway, I got it.
And how, thinking about it now, how does one that came from that beginning, which anyone could hide behind forever and say, given that disadvantage, how could you expect me to succeed? What made you?
Well, now mind you, it must be said that when I was 14, I got a scholarship to a college. So I went to high school in the day and to college at night. And I took dance and drama. So when I started, I guess about 20, I started to teach dance and started to sing for a living. I had a job once as a shake dancer.
What's that? What's that?
The shake dancer was the...
Is that the go-go dancer?
Oh, yes, but long before. And I worked in a strip joint. There were 4 of us, 3 strippers and me. And the strippers were white. And I didn't strip. I was too nice to strip. I wore a costume that if you balled it up, you could put it in a penny matchbox, that 2 spangles and a twirl or something like that.
But you didn't strip all of it.
But and the 4 of us danced from 8 until 2, every hour, 15 minutes an hour. So the other ladies would go out and they go, tee, 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 tee. But I would hit it. I would go out and dance. And the band was black, all the musicians were black. And they'd been used to so I came in and asked for Caravan and all sorts of exotic songs, which meant that they had to work. So it was a while before they really liked me. But after a while, I would try to cut them. That is, I would try to do, some double rhythms and which would make them have to, try to cut me. And they'd double up and triple up and play 5/4s and things like that. And so we began to enjoy it. I really liked it.
What poetry do you associate with how you feel right now? Is there a poem that comes to you?
Mm.
What have we stirred up?
Oh, so many. There's a poem. There's a poem which is a good woman feeling bad, because you almost made me weep on this thing 2 or 3 times. I guess I did weep.
How does that poem go?
Good woman feeling bad. The blues may be the life you've led, or midnight hours in an empty bed, but persecuting blues I've known could stalk like tigers and break like bone, pinned like rope in a gallows tree, make me curse my pedigree. Bitterness thick on a rankling tongue, psalms to love left unsung, rivers heading north but ending south, funeral music and a going home mouth. All riddles are blues, and all blues are sad. And I'm just talking about some blues I've had.
I made you feel that way?
Thinking about all those things, all those people. And when I think about the girl I was, I'm amazed that I made it. You ask me, how did I do it? I have no idea. I can't believe it. I feel so sorry for her.
That little girl?
Yeah.
Little Marguerite. When you started.
Yeah.
No bigger around than your baby finger.
Yeah.
Do you ever see her in your mind's eye? You ever feel like her again?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Some men can make me feel like that.
I'm Greg Jackson. There seems so much to the story that we've only begun to scratch the proverbial surface. So
that's where I'm pausing. And tomorrow I will bring more back, the rest of this interview tomorrow. And then the day after that, I'm going to wind Mama Maya forward. And we're going to watch some of the things she's done in her later life after this point. But I hope you heard and you were inspired. Who would have thought that this woman, that little girl who stopped speaking, would become a legendary orator, a legendary poet, a legendary playwright? Who would have thought her future could hold so much if you had judged her by her beginning? And if you had met her when she had her house of lady pleasures and judged her at that point in her journey, you would have judged her incorrectly, because her journey was not yet over. It was just beginning. And the backdrop to this woman is amazing. And from it, we can all be inspired, because what is it saying to women everywhere, girls everywhere? It doesn't matter where you are now. You can still, from where you are, make it to someplace else. You still have the ability to evolve, be more, do more. You can. And what might seem impossible and what might be told to you is not your place. A woman will never do that. A woman will never be there. We can never expect women to be like that. You're just going to have to deal with the harsh realities. If you are ever told that, or if you at any point have told a little girl that there are realities she'll never be able to push past, please try to find that little girl again and tell her that's not true. And play her Mama Maya. Because Mama Maya was in a time where statements like that would have been echoed everywhere, and there would have been so many facts to support it. But just the fact that she has existed and she has achieved so much, it means any little girl, and especially little girls who are packaged like me, little black girls, even when we're not included, and even when people say we can't, we can. We can be more. We can do more. Excuse me. And we, as little girls, can become great women. Yes, I am grateful the little girl inside has never died. Yes, I am grateful the little girl in me still holds an innocent smile. Yes, I am grateful the girl in me knows how to hide. Yes, I am grateful the girl in me continues to speak from the inside. Yes, I am grateful the girl inside whispers to me strength and she kisses my cheek. And yes, I am grateful the girl inside helps me to survive. One day I hope the girl in me will a woman be that stands not equal to the me, but equal to any man without ever having to fall to her knees. This is the hope I have for every little girl, whether she's packaged like me or she's packaged in any other hue that we have labeled race in this world in which we live. But to every little brown or black girl, keep dreaming and keep reaching and keep being. And to every apparent black woman who still has a little girl who has been told horrid things, keep evolving and keep allowing yourself to be, because there is so much more that your journey has to unfold for you. So stay strong. And this Women's Month, let's keep smiling because there's hope. And let's be grateful even when there are opportunities to be doubtful. Let's be grateful and let's keep reaching, because our story is still unfolding. And there is some girl somewhere, some woman in the future who needs you to keep doing and evolving your journey so that they can take your legacy and use it as a map to form the journey that's going to be their life. So we've got to keep going, women. We've got to keep doing. Thank you all today for being with me at a different time, and I went a different way. But I really feel in Women's Month, the women have to be addressed. And I can address probably sometimes better than others, women who look like me, because our journeys are somewhat more similar. But yet, as a woman, regardless of my packaging, there's a journey that is common. And that's the journey to find true equality and recognition as being just as good as a man, of having a voice that is just as strong, although my tones may be softer. They may not be pitched the same. I am still valuable. You are still valuable. So let's keep doing this thing called this journey of life. And I'm going to play my intro and closing song. And I invite you to listen to the lyrics, because the lyrics are very inspiring in themselves if you take the time to listen. Because I know the beat is great. I know it is a fabulous beat. But the lyrics themselves say so much more. Listen to these lyrics as we go out. And allow yourself to be thankful for where you are on this thing called this journey. I'll see you tomorrow.
The journey to be myself and I, be myself and I, be myself. to do the legends of my past. I have learned, yes, I have. Now I have answers. Looking in the mirror at myself, and I'm liking what I see, but it's been a journey to get here. It's been a journey to get here. Looking in the mirror at myself, and I'm loving what I see, but it's been a journey to get here. It's been a journey to get here. To the place of recognition of me, myself, and I. Be myself, and be myself, and be myself, and be myself, and I. Be myself, myself, and I. Be myself, and I. Be myself, and I. Be myself, and I. Be myself, and I.